5 True Hiking Horror Stories. Story 1: The Mysterious Figure. In the summer of 2019, Daniel and his friends decided to hike the remote Appalachian Trail. It was a perfect getaway from their busy lives in the city. The trail promised breathtaking views and a challenging adventure. However, they had no idea that their trip would take a sinister turn. On the third day of their hike, they reached a secluded section of the trail, miles away from the nearest town. As the sun began to set, they found a suitable spot to set up camp for the night. The group gathered around a campfire, sharing stories and enjoying the serene surroundings. Around midnight, as they were about to retire to their tents, Daniel noticed a figure standing at the edge of the forest, barely visible in the dim light of the fire. The figure was tall and motionless, watching them from a distance. Daniel pointed it out to his friends, but when they looked, the figure had vanished. The next day, the group continued their hike, but an uneasy feeling lingered. They couldn't shake off the sensation of being watched. That night, they camped near a small clearing. As they settled in, they heard rustling noises and saw shadows moving among the trees. They called out, thinking it might be an animal, but there was no response. Suddenly, one of Daniel's friends screamed. They rushed over to find him pointing at a tree where a series of strange symbols were carved into the bark. The symbols looked old and ominous, and none of them could decipher their meaning. That night, they took turns keeping watch, but the sense of unease only grew stronger. On the final day of their hike, they encountered an old man walking in the opposite direction. He seemed friendly and asked them about their journey. When they mentioned the strange figure and symbols, the old man's expression changed. He warned them that the area was known for strange occurrences and that many hikers had reported similar sightings. Shaken by the warning, they quickened their pace and made it to the nearest town by evening. They never figured out who or what the figure was, but the experience left them deeply unsettled. They vowed never to hike the remote sections of the Appalachian Trail again, haunted by the memory of the mysterious figure and the eerie symbols. Story 2: The Disappearing Friend. In the spring of 2018, a group of college friends planned a hiking trip to the Grand Canyon. It was meant to be a week-long adventure filled with exploration and camaraderie. The group consisted of 5 friends: Mike, Sarah, Jason, Emily, and Tom. They were all experienced hikers, excited to take on the challenging trails. On the 4th day of their hike, they decided to split into 2 groups to cover more ground. Mike and Sarah took one trail, while Jason, Emily, and Tom took another. They planned to meet back at the campsite by dusk. As the sun began to set, Mike and Sarah returned, but the others were nowhere to be found. Hours passed, and the group grew worried. They decided to search for their friends but found no trace of them. The next morning, they contacted park rangers, who launched a search and rescue operation. Days turned into weeks, but no sign of Jason, Emily, or Tom was ever found. Months later, Mike received a call from an unknown number. When he answered, he heard static and faint voices, as if from a great distance. One voice stood out. It was Tom, saying, "Help us, we're lost." The call abruptly ended, leaving Mike in shock. Determined to find answers, Mike and Sarah returned to the Grand Canyon, retracing their steps. They reached the spot where their friends had disappeared and found an old, weathered journal lying on the ground. The journal belonged to a hiker who had gone missing in the 1970s. It contained detailed accounts of strange occurrences and mysterious disappearances in the area. Mike and Sarah shared the journal with the authorities, who reopened the case. Despite extensive investigations, the fate of their friends remained a mystery. The eerie phone call and the discovery of the journal left them haunted by the inexplicable events. They never returned to the Grand Canyon, forever scarred by the disappearance of their friends. Story 3: The Phantom Hiker. In the autumn of 2017, Laura, an avid hiker, decided to tackle the Pacific Crest Trail alone. It was a lifelong dream, and she meticulously planned every detail of her journey. The trail was known for its stunning vistas and challenging terrain, but Laura felt confident in her abilities. One evening, as she was setting up camp near a picturesque lake, she noticed another hiker in the distance. He was dressed in outdated hiking gear and seemed to be moving aimlessly. Laura called out to him, but he didn't respond. He simply turned and walked into the forest. The next day, Laura continued her hike, occasionally spotting the mysterious hiker in the distance. He never seemed to follow a clear path, and his presence began to unsettle her. That night, she heard footsteps around her tent, accompanied by the rustling of leaves. She peered outside but saw no one. As the days passed, the encounters became more frequent. Laura asked other hikers she met along the trail if they had seen the man, but no one had. The sense of being watched grew stronger, and Laura's anxiety intensified. One evening, while setting up camp near a dense forest, she saw the man again, standing just beyond the tree line. Determined to confront him, Laura approached, but as she got closer, he vanished into thin air. She searched the area but found no trace of him. Laura decided to cut her trip short and head to the nearest town. When she arrived, she shared her experiences with the local authorities. They informed her that the area had a long history of mysterious sightings and that the man she described matched the description of a hiker who had gone missing in the 1930s. The authorities believed that Laura had encountered the ghost of the missing hiker, doomed to wander the trail forever. The experience left Laura deeply shaken. She never returned to the Pacific Crest Trail and remained haunted by the memory of the phantom hiker. Story 4: The Eerie Cave. In the summer of 2016, a group of friends decided to explore a remote hiking trail in the Rocky Mountains. The trail was known for its challenging terrain and breathtaking views. Among the group was Rachel, an experienced hiker with a passion for adventure. On the second day of their hike, they came across a hidden cave. Curiosity got the better of them, and they decided to explore it. The cave was dark and narrow, with walls covered in strange markings. As they ventured deeper, they felt an inexplicable sense of dread. Rachel found an old, rusty lantern and decided to light it. The flickering light revealed more unsettling symbols on the cave walls, resembling ancient runes. Suddenly they heard a low, growling noise coming from the depths of the cave. Panic set in, and they hurriedly made their way back to the entrance. As they emerged from the cave, they noticed that the forest around them had grown eerily silent. The birds and insects that had filled the air with their sounds were now absent. They decided to set up camp nearby, but the sense of unease lingered. That night, Rachel woke up to find the lantern she had lit earlier glowing brightly outside her tent. She distinctly remembered putting it out before going to sleep. As she stepped out of the tent, she saw shadowy figures moving among the trees. She called out to her friends, but they were all still asleep. The shadowy figures drew closer, and Rachel felt a cold hand grasp her arm. She screamed, waking up her friends. They saw the shadows too and quickly packed up their gear, leaving the area as fast as they could. The hike back to their car was filled with a sense of dread, and they constantly felt like they were being followed. When they finally reached safety, Rachel researched the cave and discovered it was rumored to be a site of ancient rituals. The symbols on the walls were believed to be a form of protection against malevolent spirits. The experience left Rachel and her friends deeply shaken, and they vowed never to return to the Rocky Mountains.